Delta Force was created as a carbon copy of the SAS, built on British expertise and tradition. But when 8 Americans died at Desert One and the SAS stunned the world in just 17 minutes at the Iranian embassy, the gap in performance was undeniable. How did the apprentice surpass the master? And what really forced America's most secretive unit to outgrow its origins? The answer begins with a quietly brewing crisis. In the summer of 1941, David Stirling gathered 65 men in the North African desert and launched the Special Air Service, a unit built for raids behind enemy lines. The SAS was born from a simple idea. Small teams, operating with autonomy, could strike harder and faster than entire battalions. Stirling's approach, rigorous selection, relentless endurance tests, a focus on navigation and improvisation, set the standard for special forces worldwide. 3 decades later, a young American officer named Charles Beckwith arrived in Malaya to embed with 22 SAS. For 12 months between 1962 and 1963, Beckwith lived the regimen of the British Commandos. He marched through jungle heat, learned the logic of 4-man patrols, and saw firsthand how the SAS selected only those who could think and act independently under pressure. Beckwith returned to the United States convinced that the American military needed a unit built in the same mold. By 1977, Beckwith's vision became reality at Fort Bragg. Delta Force, or 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, was activated as a near-mirror image of the SAS. Every detail, the punishing land navigation marches, the operator-centric philosophy, was borrowed from the British playbook. The first selection course in 1978 saw over 100 candidates whittled down to just a dozen, echoing the SAS's notorious failure rate. At its core, Delta's DNA was British, shaped by Stirling's legacy and Beckwith's determination to transplant that ethos onto American soil. The apprentice had its master, and the relationship was one of student and teacher, discipline and tradition. April 1980. A convoy of American helicopters and C-130 sits stranded in the Iranian desert. The mission, rescue 52 hostages from Tehran, has collapsed. 8 U.S. service members are dead, their aircraft destroyed by fire and confusion. Operation Eagle Claw was supposed to be Delta Force's moment to prove itself. Instead, it exposed every weakness: unreliable aircraft, poor coordination, and a lack of unified command. Delta's operators, trained in SAS methods but lacking the British regiment's experience, could only watch as the mission unraveled. Not a single hostage made it home. Just days later, the world's attention shifted to London. On May 5, 1980, 6 gunmen held 26 hostages inside the Iranian embassy. The SAS response was swift and clinical. In just 17 minutes, black-clad commandos stormed the building, killed 5 terrorists, and rescued all but one of the hostages. The operation played out on live television, cementing the SAS's reputation as the gold standard in counterterrorism. Where Delta faltered, the SAS succeeded, publicly, decisively, and with a precision that left little doubt about which unit held the upper hand. Behind the scenes, the selection standards remained unforgiving. The SAS's selection pass rate hovered below 10%. Only the most adaptable, resilient candidates survived the process, earning a place in a regiment that had just demonstrated its value to the world. For Delta, the lesson was clear. Technical skill and borrowed doctrine were not enough. Credibility had to be earned in the field, and the path forward would demand more than imitation. General Stanley McChrystal took command of Joint Special Operations Command in 2003, determined to end the cycle of missed opportunities and slow-moving manhunts. Under his leadership, Delta Force and its JSOC partners launched a campaign in Iraq that would become legendary for its speed and scale. Operators found themselves executing an estimated 300 raids each month at the height of the campaign, sometimes hitting multiple targets in a single night, then rolling straight into planning for the next objective. This was not the world of patient rehearsals and rare deployments. It was a relentless industrial tempo that demanded constant adaptation. The secret lay in the F3EA cycle: find, fix, finish, exploit, analyze. Intelligence analysts, drone operators, signals intercept teams, and assault squads fused into a single machine. A tip from a captured insurgent at dawn could be verified by a drone overhead by noon and acted on by a Delta assault team before sunset. Every raid produced new information: maps, phones, prisoner interrogations that fed directly back into the cycle, shrinking the time from suspicion to strike from weeks to hours. This operational rhythm forged a different kind of expertise. Combat became the teacher. Mistakes were paid for in real time, and lessons absorbed by every operator, squadron, and planner. Delta's selection course still filtered for the same resilience and independence Beckwith admired in the SAS, but the real test now came in the field, night after night, year after year. By 2010, Delta's core knowledge was no longer borrowed. It had been built, raid by raid, on the crucible of sustained, high-risk operations. The unit's transformation was underway, and the apprenticeship was ending. USSOCOM's disclosed budget for 2024 stands at $13.1 billion, a figure that eclipses the resources available to most American allies, including the entire UK defense budget. Within that, Delta Force draws on a support network that is simply unmatched in the special operations world. The 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers, provides more than 70 dedicated helicopters and tilt-rotor aircraft, offering Delta teams the ability to deploy anywhere on Earth with little warning and with air crews who train exclusively for high-risk missions. The British SAS, by contrast, relies on a handful of shared aviation assets, often drawn from regular military squadrons with no equivalent to the 160th scale or specialization. Intelligence is another area where the gap has widened into a gulf. Delta's operations are supported by the Intelligence Support Activity, a shadowy unit tasked with providing real-time signals and human intelligence tailored to Delta's missions. This means that actionable information, phone intercepts, drone feeds, and surveillance data can be piped directly to operators on the ground, sometimes within minutes of collection. The SAS depends on intelligence drawn from the broader UK military and government agencies, which means slower fusion and less direct control over mission-critical information. The difference in manpower is just as stark. Delta can select its operators from a pool of nearly 500,000 active-duty US Army soldiers, while the SAS draws from a British Army that has shrunk to around 73,000 regulars, its smallest size since the Napoleonic Wars. The result is a force that not only fields more operators, but surrounds them with a web of dedicated enablers, pilots, analysts, technicians, whose only job is to make Delta's missions possible. In every measurable way, the apprentice now operates with resources the master never dreamed of. Analysts at institutions like RUSI, the Brookings Institution, and the Modern War Institute have tracked the evolution of special operations forces on both sides of the Atlantic. Their reports draw a clear distinction between the scale and sophistication of American special operations today and the more limited, though still elite, capabilities of their British counterparts. In public briefings and published studies, these experts point to the unprecedented operational tempo experienced by Delta Force in the post-9/11 era, hundreds of raids each month at the height of the Iraq campaign, integrated with real-time intelligence and dedicated aviation support. They note that the United States now fields a special operations budget exceeding $13 billion, while the UK's special forces operate with a fraction of those resources. This gap, they argue, has reshaped the relationship between the two units, with Delta Force relying on its own combat-forged expertise and technological infrastructure rather than external models. USSOCOM's modernization priorities now reach into fields that were science fiction a decade ago. AI-enabled targeting, augmented reality overlays for operators, and biometric data streaming in real time from the battlefield. Delta Force sits at the center of these advances, with resources and infrastructure that few can rival. The United Kingdom's 2021 Integrated Review promised a leap forward for its special forces, but budget constraints and global commitments have slowed progress. In recent joint exercises, the dynamic has shifted so noticeably that one Delta veteran described the experience this way: "We're showing them tools and workflows they just don't have yet." The apprentice no longer seeks approval from the master. Instead, the future of special operations is being written in American code, on American systems, at a pace the SAS now studies more than shapes. Today, a $13 billion budget and 2 decades of non-stop combat have made Delta Force the teacher, not the student. In an era defined by AI and rapid adaptation, the next playbook is written by those who can afford to invent it. The balance has shifted, permanently. What do you think?